my demo system. And let me go ahead and log in here. And I will pull up the management, which is here. So what I'm looking at here is really your single point of management. You're talking about unified storage. This particular tool, Celera Manager Advanced Edition, is really your single pane of glass that allows you to evaluate file systems, to create reports, any kind of trending analysis. How full is my file system? What's the overall performance that I'm getting both from my front end, which is these blades, and also the back end, which is a Clarion, so I can kind of get a holistic view or a dashboard of my entire environment from the front end, which is the blades, all the way to the back end, which is my Clarion. Okay, so this is what I would consider the home screen. A lot of little great topics or hits here that I can quickly see. For example, I can highlight these guys, right-click, export, and export the data for any kind of reporting. I can export this to an Excel spreadsheet. So quickly, if I have management asking me how many file systems do I have, how full are they, how many are being replicated, how many have dedupe enabled, right-click, property, select them all, export out to an Excel spreadsheet, and I can kind of keep a running total of what I'm doing here. If I want to get more granular, I can double-click on any particular file system. So in this case, I'll double-click on this dedupe file system, and I can get very, very fine information pertaining to that file system. File system name, how full is it, how many days, and kind of a predict full. So based on your ingest rate, this particular file system, which is 1 gig, will be full in 41 days. Some performance characteristics. So we'll talk a little bit more about this, but that was kind of a quick 1-2 in terms of kind of getting the feel of the GUI. So everything that I do from a GUI perspective can be done from a CLI. And I'll just log in here very quickly via PuTTY session, NAS admin. And again, if I wanted to, let's say for example, take a look at all the file systems that I have created. So this particular view would be very similar to me doing a server_df, server_2. And again, this information here from a CLI perspective is identical to here, which is the GUI. Linux based, of course. We run an operating system called Dart, data access in real time. On the Clarion side, we run Flare. So both very mature operating systems have been around for quite some time. Okay, so with that being said, let's concentrate on the directory side here. Take a look at what these items refer to. So if we remember back in the presentation, we talked about those blades. Those blades are referred to here as data movers. So data movers and blades are really, they're the same thing. So in this case, this particular system has 2 blades. I have a primary blade and a standby blade. So for example, if I click on this little plus arrow, you'll notice all of the feature functionality that I have within that active blade. So for any reason, panic, a crash, the blade blows up or catches on fire, all of these properties pertaining to this active blade, which is called server_2, would be trespassed over to server_3. So I have what in essence is a clustered environment. So if anything happens to that primary blade, I have a blade here that is ready, powered up, booted up, ready to take over for that standby blade. From a unified storage perspective, this is extremely important because providing those SLAs back to my customer is extremely important. Okay, so that's kind of the architecture. If you remember during the product portfolio, we can have up to 8 blades. So what you would see here would be blade 1, blade 2, blade 3, blade 4, blade 5, and so on and so forth. So let's say, for example, that blade number 2, let's say that I was pushing 70% utilization on that blade, and it panicked, it failed, something happened to it. I have a blade that is ready to take on that 70% load without really impacting the rest of my environment. Okay, so these blades are really N+1 in terms of taking on the load. Again, those are called data movers. File systems. We have, in this case, I have about 10 file systems or so. Again, a file system is kind of the start of putting kind of the picture together, creating a file system, taking that file system, exporting that file system. So that's kind of the start. I mean, this is kind of the heart of NAS, Network Attached Storage. Checkpoints, that is a representation of how that file system was at any given point. So a checkpoint is kind of your lifeline. We're going to talk a little bit about that, what that means, and how to use it kind of in a real world scenario. Of course, we support CIFS for Windows users, NFS, iSCSI, replication, and then we have some wizards and tools and CLI and notifications and events. So again, very rich in terms of the capabilities here. So with that being said, let's just create a new file system. So we're on the File System tab here. Let's select New here at the bottom. And we'll create a file system here and kind of walk through some of the properties associated and some of the best practices that I think make sense in terms of creating a file system. Okay, so basically what I like to do is when I teach this is start from the top, go down to the bottom. Create from storage pool or a meta volume. This concept is very easy to understand. A storage pool, think about it as I have a back-end Clarion, and I've got a DAE or a shelf of 15 disks, fiber channel disks. And those disks, I want to do a RAID 5 4+1. So I've in essence created a pool. I've created a RAID 5 pool with fiber channel disks. If you look here at the storage pools, I actually have two flavors. I have a RAID 1 and a RAID 5, which means when I create this file system, and I'll call this, say, FS1, file system 1. I can choose what type of performance or what type of RAID that this particular file system is going to be created from by leveraging these storage pools. So for example, this file system 1, I'm going to use RAID 1. Let's say, for example, this is going to be Oracle, which really likes that mirroring concept. Okay. This file system I'm going to create is going to be 200 megs. So I've got the file system name, I've got the storage pool. A question, so what happens when this storage pool